Green,
Here.
Louvet,
Here.
Rock, Leathers,
Here.
McAllister, Sorensen,
Here.
Young.
Shall we have the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before us, we have an agenda. Do I have a motion to approve? Second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. At this time, we invite delegations to come to the podium. We have two of them this evening. Just as a reminder that each presentation is limited to 5 minutes and there will be no response, reaction, nor action taken by the board during the delegation portion of the meeting. The school board will also not hear complaints about individual school employees or permit discussion of such matters in an open meeting. Those complaints must be submitted in writing to school administration. Profanity and the use of other inappropriate language will not be permitted. And so first of all, I'd like to welcome Dan Wilson.
Thank you. It's been a while since I've had the opportunity to stand in front of a group of people. I might be a little nervous, you'll have to bear with me. But it's easy because I know so many of you live in my neighborhood, and it's easy to talk to, well, let's say friendly faces or mostly friendly faces. So what I want to discuss this evening, or at least present to you until I get hauled off, is sportsmanship. And I'm not talking about our students. I'm talking about adults, coaches, and administrators, and their behavior. Now, I have a packet of this information I've shared with Sharon, and she can share that with all of you. If you look at it, have any questions, my phone number's in there. I'd like you to give me a call. But first of all, I want to describe the event. I'll call it the event. So back on May 18th, 2 high schools played baseball. And one of the high schools, a month earlier, had beaten the other high school really bad. 10-run rule, 5 innings. It was kind of a lopsided game. So 2 of us, my partner and I, doing the game, I was the base umpire. And what happened was, it looked like the team that won the first game was going to win this game. So before every game, we talk about sportsmanship, the importance of good behavior, modeling, and the coaches shake hands, the umpires shake hands, and we play ball. Well, it looked like the visiting team was going to win again. And there was a lot of anxiety, pressure was mounting, and in between the 6th and 7th inning, I simply walked up to both coaches and I said, hey, remember the discussion we had before the game? Behavior, sportsmanship, and we didn't want to hear any bench jockeying, any taunting. We just weren't going to tolerate it. And we were sure we weren't going to have a problem. So we get to the bottom of the 7th inning with the home team. They're down by 2 runs. There's 2 outs and bases are loaded. The visiting team, and I don't mind telling you, the visiting team was Austin. So what happens is there's 2 outs. Coach didn't feel his boy could get the 3rd out. He walks out, changes pitchers. Pitcher comes in, bases loaded, 2 outs. First batter, bing, 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 bing. 4 straight balls. Here comes the tying run. Don knows what this is about. Next batter comes up to bat. Bases loaded now, tie game. Ball 1, ball 2, strike 1. Guess what happened on the next pitch? He got beamed. Here came the winning run. So here's one of the behaviors, and I'll be sure not to swear. The runner from first base had to go to second. I'm the infield umpire. I'm walking across right behind the mound to watch the batter runner who was being touched first. Everybody has to advance to score that run. Well, the runner from first went to second, made a beeline to the pitcher's mound, and he said something rather inappropriate. Now, if you'd like to know what he said, it's in my report that you have a copy of. I thought it was inappropriate. I simply walked up to the young man and I said, hey, you should not be talking to the opposing player. As long as an umpire is still on the field, you can still be ejected for unsportsmanlike conduct, and please move away. I looked around, it looked like things were settling down. I walked over to the fence, grabbed my cooler, and I'm walking out with my partner out of the gate. Wouldn't you know it, the home team head coach put a big finger in my face, and we'll say we had a rather lively discussion. And I wasn't having any of it, so I gave him the same warning. The warning was, hey, even though the game's over, behave or you too can be ejected. That was about the end of it. The head umpire and I, or the plate umpire and I, we left. At the gate, we met the athletic director of the home team, and he didn't have any problem with what he saw in the field, and he asked me if I had ejected anybody. And I said, no, didn't eject anyone. But I said, after that demonstration, I'm sending a report into the Minnesota State High School League. And he said, well, don't worry about my head coach, because I'll take care of him. Fine with me. And we left.
You have 1 minute.
1 minute left.
Yes.
You'll have to see this in my report. But that was the event. I have both the umpire incident reports in there. The email from the Minnesota State High School League, I'll just tell you what happened. I got suspended. I missed 7 games. That's the story. We had some upset Austin fans and coaches. I'm sure they'll share their stories with you. But just so you know, I'm not done with this. And if you follow my reports, you'll have my entire presentation. Thanks for the time. Nice to see you.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we invite Krista Walt Kennedy to come forward.
And I don't feel right speaking for them, I don't have that information, so we'll just have to wait for another meeting.
We're not gonna be able to make it.
Okay, so maybe at a future date. Okay, thank you, Sharon. Okay, we invite Superintendent Page for his report.
Thank you, Chair Green, members of the board. My report for July is as follows. First, I just want to recognize Olivia Walsh. She was the Post Bulletin Girls Track and Field Athlete of the Year, which ended by her amazing performance up at the State High School Meet. And if you've had a chance to see in the Post Bulletin article, it was stated that Olivia Walsh will go down as one of Austin's best all-time all-around athletes ever. And she put an exclamation mark on that in the final track and field season. So on behalf of the board and myself, I just want to congratulate her and her family, her teammates, her coaches, and wish her the best as she begins her collegiate career at the University of Minnesota Crookston. So also want to congratulate I.J. Holton Intermediate School and Woodson Kindergarten Center. They were recognized as 2022-2023 PBIS Sustaining Exemplar Schools from the Minnesota Department of Education for their work with positive behavior intervention systems. We also had 7 members of our Austin High School Clay Target team that just competed in the Nationals. And so I want to congratulate them on an exceptional season representing themselves, their community, and their school. A couple weeks ago, the National School Public Relations Association recognized Austin Public Schools in 3 categories for awards and communications. One was our e-newsletter, Award of Excellence for recognizing the Austin Packer Bulletin, which is our community newsletter that we send out. Our Internet Website Award for Excellence was recognized for the referendum site that we put together, Accelerate Austin. And then we also had a video award of excellence for our Packer profile video, which is an informational video describing the district's key initiative in our strategic plan priorities. So hats off to everyone involved with that. It's a huge effort, and I know he's not here tonight, but Ryan Mears plays a big part in our communications world. So we want to thank him too for all of his work and being recognized at that level. This is a personal note. I just want to say it's with immense gratitude and appreciation that to be honored and recognized as the 2023 Public Service and Government Award recipient from the Austin Rotary. I wasn't able to attend that ceremony. I was traveling with my family, but I want to thank Peggy for being there and accepting that. And it's really an honor. And I just want to send a heartfelt appreciation to the members of the Rotary Club, but also it just exemplifies the work that we do in our district with our team. So I certainly want to thank everyone's help in recognizing the work that we're doing. And it's significant, and our collective efforts are making a difference. So thank you very much. I'm sitting close here to Carolyn, so I want to just mention again that the Packer Classic is coming up this weekend with a gala event on the night before, on Sunday, with a golf tournament on Monday. So there's still time to get a team in.
Yes, if you get it in today.
When you get it in today.
Yes, we would love to see at least another team or two.
Right. Yeah. So, lastly, we sent out this week with our academic year begins on July 1, and so we've sent out our annual notifications. We'll have another reminder that goes out, but if you bored because you haven't got a lot of school communication because we're in the summer, please check your emails and look at our annual notifications. There's a lot of pertinent information that various important matters that the district communicates out. We'll also send another reminder about all the policies and procedures and activities for our students' education. So that is my July report.
Any questions? Wonderful. Now time for school board reports. If anyone would like to share anything that they've been participating in. It's kind of our off time. Don?
Where's Ryan tonight?
Ryan is vacation.
Oh, it's not the same as I am filming this. Which isn't all bad. I'd just like to say I'm a University of Minnesota alumni, and I don't do a lot of things with that organization, but I think on July 22nd, they're having the alumni go up to the Twins game, and they're giving out mascots and having beverages at some alumni's place up at the Target Field. But Jeff Ettinger is gonna throw out the first ball. So, that's pretty cool. Usually I'm not the first person that knows stuff, but, I think usually I'm at the tail end. You know, you went with a woman who owns a beauty shop. I'd just like to, comment about the June 28th Southeast Service Cooperative Board meeting. We had, I'm gonna read some of this. Jeff Amat from the, Regional Center of Excellence spoke, and it's just amazing. They have 98 schools that they serve, and they're advocates for students in the southeast Minnesota and the metro area, and that's really a great thing. And then Gary Kubicek has been awarded the Southeast Service Cooperative Employee of the Year, which is a great thing, and she'll be honored up at the fall. They have a fall banquet, the service cooperatives. They eschew the summer, do them in the fall, and she'll be recognized there. And then also, STEM Forward is going to be recognized on KTTC TV, I believe, on August 27th, if I'm not mistaken. But Sarah Ness has done a fantastic job. The staff over there is just really amazing. I feel very lucky to be involved there and then we always go to whistle pickies afterwards and have a little fun, so it's a win-win. But that's a great staff over there. They do a lot for our schools, and I hope that we're taking advantage of their expertise, because they're always, I hate to use the word pushing, but they're always reinventing the wheel over there, and that's good to see. So, July 22nd, White Sox, Twins, Jeff Ettinger. He's right-handed.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Carol?
I just wanna piggyback on Joey's plug for the Packer Classic and just reiterate how generous the community is for all of the sponsors that we get each and every year. The funding that comes from that event goes right back into our classrooms. This last year, we were able to give over $95,000 in grants to our teachers and our administrators. It really gives me goosebumps every year. I get to see how much we get to pour back into the school district. And last year we were able to initiate a new grant type for new staff and new teachers new to the profession, teachers new to the district. And just thinking ahead to August, when those new teachers will be coming in, very excited to be able to see them receive those grants and be able to set up their classrooms appropriately, and not necessarily out of their own pockets for everything. Maybe buy something really cool for their classroom. So just one more underlining, Austin's so amazing, and it's a testament to our community that we are able to give that kind of funding right back to our teachers.
And thank you.
Thanks for doing that, Carolyn.
Yeah. Thank you, Carolyn, for all of your work that you put in year-round for that organization.
It is a team effort, 100%.
Okay, now we'll move on to consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Evan, is there a second? Second by Carolyn, discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Number 8, request approval of 2023 truth and taxation date. This is an action item. Executive Director of Finance and Operation, Andrew Adams, will present. Welcome, Andrew.
Good evening, Chair Green, Superintendent Page, members of the board. Tonight before you, we have the annual notification and request for approval of the date for the truth and taxation hearing. This year's date will be Monday, December 11th, 2023, and that is recommended for your approval.
Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
John, is there a second? Second by Carol. Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Request approval of local educational agency title grants. Representative for 23-24 year. This is Superintendent. This is an action item.
Yes, thank you, Chair Green, members of the board. Each year, the school board is required to designate the local educational agent for the district. This designation is for the oversight of federal title funds, as well as work with any required district site improvement plans that may result from adequate yearly progress status. Local education agent's responsibility fall under Ms. Baskin's new role as Academic and Administrative Services Executive Director, so naming her as the district's LEA representative would align with her position. It is my recommendation that the board appoint Katie Baskin as the local education agent, or LEA, for the Austin Public Schools for the 23-24 school year.
Do I have a motion to approve that appointment?
So,
Moved by Carolyn, is there a second? Second by Peggy, discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Congratulations, Katie.
She's on our next list right now.
When is your first meeting in that organization?
We just had a World's Best Workforce meeting last month in June, and we'll have our first one in September.
And you'll have your cast off by then?
I'm open.
Okay, so now we're into the meat of the meeting for this evening. And so we'll start off with policy 621, literacy and the READ Act. And Dr. Page is going to give us an intro to our policy discussions this evening.
Thank you, Chair Green, members of the board. The first reading tonight is with the Literacy and the READ Act. And just a little bit of background with this, the Minnesota Reading to Ensure Academic Development Act, also known as the READ Act, was passed and signed into law by Governor Walz this May. The goal of this legislation is to have every Minnesota child read at or above grade level every year, beginning in kindergarten, and to support multilingual learners and students receiving special education services and achieving their individual reading goals. The READ Act replaces the Reading Well by Third Grade Act, which was in statute, and the READ Act goes into effect now on July 1 of 2023. As you look through the policy, there's some things just I want to point out. We're talking about reading, screeners, parent notifications, and involvement. We have an identification and a reporting structure now. The policy talks about interventions, our local literacy plan, staff training, staff development, and also how we use our literacy incentive aids. So tonight is the first reading of this policy.
Is there an increased emphasis on phonics, legislation as well?
Correct. Yes.
You remember I sent you something from the state of Mississippi where this individual gave a large amount of money, and they have really exceeded expectations. And this is something that I read in a counterpoint article in the paper one day, is that Mississippi has in their program, if you don't pass it in third grade, you don't go on. And it's been very effective. It's not in the Minnesota legislation, but they say it's not a punitive thing. It ramps it up for everybody. Hey, we don't want these kids to be held back after third grade. And so hopefully, I'm not saying I know everything about it, but it seemed like a good initiative to get good results, and I know that it's not in the current Minnesota legislation. But the legislation is.
Yeah, and there'll be, I know this August, the first week of August at the MSDA Welcome Back event, there is a breakout session on the READ Act, and will be presented by Dr. Kim Gibbons, who also works with Carrie, who works with our district too, so she'll be presenting at the school board conference this August.
That's that summer seminar?
Correct.
Yeah.
So with this, and I was having a conversation with Dr. Page prior, and that the district's been working diligently for the last year and a half on putting our reading curriculum together, and really working hard on how are we going to meet the needs of our students. And so this is kind of throws a huge pebble in the pond as far as back to the drawing board of how do we integrate all the work we've been doing and really build on that, as well as following this legislation. This was for the legislature to take this on and present it statewide is a pretty significant thing. So we're hoping for good things, but it's going to need a lot of work for our staff. So any further questions or discussions on that?
I'm just wondering if, it talks about that if the student isn't at their reading level, by the end of the school year, intervention will continue to be provided until they hit that level. Everybody can hear me. This is a ridiculous question, I know, I just want to hear it said out loud. Is there any additional funding available? We've got a large segment of our student population that comes in knowing zero English, and how does that?
Yeah, there has been some funding set aside for curriculum resources, and so we're looking at, when does that window open, and whether we have some state curriculums that we have to use at this point. So all of those processes will start, so we can apply any funding that's available.
Will those curriculum resources include interventionists? Should we need to add staff?
No.
Not staffing.
This is the first reading. We will be revisiting this at our next meeting on the 24th. The next policy is policy 624, online instruction.
Yes, Chair Green and members of the board, with our online instruction, this is a brand new policy to the school district. The purpose of this policy is to recognize and govern online instruction options for students enrolled in the school district for the purpose of compulsory attendance and address enrollment of students with an online instruction site for supplemental or full-time learning. Just a few pieces about this. Now, all LEA school districts can provide online learning to their own enrolled students with a limit of 40 students per course. So really, essentially, all of the school districts in Minnesota now become online, or have become online providers. And then also it broadly defines what different kinds of instruction is. So you have online instruction, blended instruction, digital instruction, and then gives some language support for entities with non-enrolled students in school districts. So this is a policy that we haven't had before, and we're starting off with the first read tonight.
Any questions? Once again, this will be revisited on the 24th for a second reading and adoption. Okay, now we're on to item 11, and I would like to approach this like we approach our consent agenda, the list, and then if people have questions as they've gone through, if there is a policy they would like to pull for further discussion this evening before adoption, I will ask for that. But before I do that, ask Joey to an overview of what it is we're looking at in total here.
Yes, I think what you're looking at in totality is a substantial amount of work that happened this legislative session. And because some of these revisions are effective immediately on or in the summer of 2023, and because revisions are taking largely from the actual legislation, we're using our model policy 208 to approve these tonight in one reading. MSBA did put out a guide on basically the primary revisions for each of these categories. So that was provided to you beforehand, but if there's anything that we need to talk about, and some of these we'll bring back that aren't on the list tonight, that need a little more work on the district side. But the ones that are before you, 11A through 11X, we're looking for approval tonight.
Okay, the reason we might want to do some discussion on these, if that favors you, is for transparency. These are legislative mandates that are overseeing our local policy. So we will be approving them, but just to know that they didn't originate these changes within this body. And so the discussion is important so that we know how the policies of our district are changing. So with that, does anyone like to pull any of these policies for discussion rather than passing as a whole? And you can let me know the numbers.
A couple do stick out to me, and one of them is student discipline.
Could you give me the number and then we'll?
11F506. I mean, they're just,
11F, okay.
that's a really,
Yeah, we'll discuss it.
and then another one is, the one on, I'm sorry, school district, assessment of student achievement, that's, 11T.
See, okay.
And I just asked Dr. Page if, do we have I don't know what the word is, Naxatone, the anti-opioid, do we have a coordinator in place for that?
Yes, we do.
Yep, district-wide individual.
Yes.
Okay. Carol, do you have any that you'd like to pull?
I just had a question about the 516.5, which is that RPM one.
516, okay. Any others? Okay, so looking at this list, I would like to pull 11G, 11I, 11K, 11L, 11M, 11N, 11Q, 11R, 11U, in addition to the other three that were mentioned. So at this point, do I have a motion to approve the ones that were not mentioned? Peggy, is there a second? Second by Carolyn. Discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Now at this point, we'll go back and, so the first one, 506, Don, would you like to address that?
Which one is it?
506 is the student discipline. Do you have discussion or
Well,
question?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm, well, this kind of dovetails on that idea of, online learning is the idea, it's mentioned in here, I'm not gonna go and dig in, but it does say that student who, might be disciplined has the option of receiving online learning as a, because the fact of the matter is some of these offenses might be to the point where you don't want that individual in the classroom, and would that be correct if, that you might give an alternative of,
Alternative placement?
yes, online learning or?
Yeah, I think it would depend on what the situation is and what, the background of the student is, if there's an IEP in place or, you know. But we still have to deliver faith.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, my question on that one is it specifically says that the school board will draft a policy. Who would be guiding that?
Can you tell me where you're at? Right there.
Let me get there, okay. It's towards the end of the red. Let's see.
It's a 20-page policy.
It is. And it has significant change from what we've done in the past.
And I'll talk about page 2. Maybe before there talks about policy.
There's a lot of must and will. Six. School board must, it literally said must draft policy. Okay, well, it's not that important because it just was a thing that, as we're reading through this again and again and again, it'll pop up, but it basically is, we're gonna have to get into the minutia of, draft something, so, thank you for that. Then we have 507, prone restraint policy, and, basically my question is, do we have options in training to mitigate the dangerous situations that will be coming before us?
Yes, so the primary revision here is that it adds prohibitions and articles of home restraints prohibitions. So we work with our CPI training, our staff, to receive that. So, that's typically our special ed settings.
Okay.
And so we have staff in the building and our administrators are trained in CPI.
And does this fall under special education or?
No,
General?
in in general, that would, could be for the students that we're working with here, but not all the time.
Okay, any other questions? Number 514, it was 9 pages. Okay, and this was it. It was under bullying prohibition, and it says, we must it's one of those dyslexic words, we're supposed to post this entire policy in all of our school buildings, okay? And discuss it with parents and students. How are we going to do that? It's like a 9-page policy, and what kind of font are we gonna have to have so that people walking by it are going to be able to?
Yep, so this is part of our annual notifications. It has been in the past, where we share this with students and our families and caregivers. So that's our first, I would say our first line is to share in our annual notifications. And then we post in our handbooks as well. So we have multiple ways that we're getting information out and that is posted in our schools.
Okay. Let's see, 532. And this is, let's see, 532. Okay, it's the use of peace officers and crisis team. It goes over restraint provisions and will this cause current procedures to change? That's the question I have.
I don't think so. It just adds a reasonable force provision, which we have in our other policies around corporal punishment. So our SROs or peace officer are allowed to use reasonable force provisions.
Okay. Policy 534, the school meal policy, and this is encouraging. This is the one that covers our meals, breakfast, and lunch being covered. But there was one line that said, so this is for Andrew, this is for you to kick around, but it discussed if a student wanted an additional meal or if they wanted to buy something out of the a la carte. Does that mean we're gonna have to have whatever we've had in place for paying for lunches will still be there for that portion? So,
And just sheerly for tracking, so students will still have to put in the number, but it's for tracking, and we're working with the state on all of the nuances that come with that.
okay, sounds good.
In order to get that a la carte item or second meal, was kind of, to me, it was a little, alerting. Do you need to have a account balance or not, and then you have a negative at a certain point? Would you have to have an account balance to go a la carte, so, okay. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Now we have item 601, curriculum and instruction goals. There was quite a bit of change in this. One of the things is item 2D, under culturally sustaining. They were definitions of terms used within the policy. And it says culturally sustaining means integrating content and practices that infuse cultural and language of Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities who have been and continue to be harmed and erased through the education system. That, I would like to see a period put after people of color. I think the rest is an editorial comment. I don't know that when you put this whole thing together, it doesn't actually explain which different, I mean, it's putting a whole bunch of different stuff together without any details. And it's kind of a blanket statement, I think, as far as, I just think as far as a policy statement, it isn't very productive. It doesn't give us guidance, but this is legislative statute, and so that came from our legislature. So I guess I'm just saying I don't wanna own the language, but it's gonna pass regardless, because that's what they told us we have to do.
This is D.
This is D, yeah. And so,
What would you propose to remediate that, or just getting rid of it completely?
no, right now, it's throwing a whole bunch of stuff in one sentence. I would be more specific about who they are talking about, because it looks like they're talking about specific groups of people rather than all people. And then maybe specific incidences that they're wanting to cover rather than saying the education system has been the cause of this. Right now, that's the way it reads, because in the end it says, continue to be harmed and erased through the education system. So they're not talking specifically about Austin Public Schools, but this particular policy is broad brushing everyone, and it doesn't have specific, and I'm just saying it's not specific and directed at a group of people and in a point in time. I'm just saying, I think the policy is not well written, but
And
we didn't read it.
I guess my question would be is, maybe, I don't know who to look to, maybe Katie about curricular standards from the state. In terms of, it looks like that language is most likely directed towards history, American history. Have there been language changes or, standard changes that would support the entire, or would it just support would the first half of that statement still be well supported, or are there specific events that need to be addressed in our curriculum that call out?
There are, so in the standards revision for social studies, they will not be actually in, I think they're in third draft, commissioner approved third draft, and so those will not be going into effect until 26, 27, and so we have been working on that third draft, and then looking at the changes and then making sure that our alignment, our curriculum will be in alignment with those statements. They do talk about ethnic studies, they do talk about Black, Indigenous people of color, and making sure that we're hitting all of those periods of time within our history, and so those will be covered throughout the span of the standards for students within our system. But we will work to meet the language of the standards through our curriculum.
Thank you.
I do think, Kathy, that you could look at that D as being, to a certain degree, a political statement. It is a statement against the antithesis of that statement, which is, we will not do that. And I think what's trying to be done here is to be inclusive by saying Indigenous, Black, and people of color. And I don't think, in my opinion, it's speaking negative about the educational system. It's a cultural thing, but we are in the business of educating people. This is a policy in education. That's why I believe it says education system. And so you have this policy that says, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to increase this. And so I think it's, to me, it's a little more specific than you perceive it to be. And if you go back a couple weeks ago to the library when they had a time when people came and were, it was a controversy over a reading thing, the library board had policies in place that said, this is our policy, we're following our policy. And that's, I think, all this subpoint is saying, that we want to have a policy where culturally sustaining activities, because some groups have had, to some extent, their culture erased, not only by the education system, but by culture itself. We just happen to be in the business of educating, and that's, I believe, why education systems, and I don't think it's a condemnation, it's,
Okay, further comment? Okay, so now I'm going to move on to 604. And it talks here about, in item H, school districts or charter school may not discriminate against or discipline a teacher or principal on the basis of incorporating into curriculum contributions of persons in a federally protected class or state class when the included contribution is aligned with standards and benchmarks adopted under Minnesota statute section 120B. My question to that one is, what if you have a teacher that is not teaching the standard or the discipline within their classroom, but they incorporate stuff unrelated to their curriculum? Under this policy, do those teachers have that ability to do that?
Yeah, I think that would be, would definitely would require conversation if it was a student-generated question that the teacher was responding to. If there was an interpretation from a student, do you mean this, or can you give an example, and then the teacher's trying to explain something. But I think I would need to know more of what the actual situation was that was being discussed and why it was being discussed, if it was a response to a student question, or we veered off to what the standards are for this particular class. So, I think, case by case, I'd have to better understand what was taking place. Or I would say that the principal would.
So once again, reading this, it lends itself to interpretation regarding whatever situation it's in. Graduation requirement, 613. Okay, this is an interesting one. We had a conversation earlier today regarding this. Graduation requirements. And under E, it's under the second E, that's under 5E, and it says students meeting the state graduation requirements under this section and who are students in grades 11 or 12 and who are identified as academically ready for career or college are actively encouraged by the school district to participate in courses and programs awarded college credit to high school students. That's all great, and that fits into our Packer profile. The next sentence, students are not required to achieve a specific score or level of proficiency on assessments to graduate from high school. So that particular line right there, open for interpretation, but a person could read into that grades don't matter.
When I read that, I read it like, I work with high schools that have their students take nursing assistant courses, but they don't have to pass the nursing assistant certification test in order to pass the class for high school. You know what I mean? If there are assessments beyond the curriculum, then they wouldn't necessarily have to pass those third-party tester assessments to pass the high school class.
Right, and when I look at that segment E as a whole, yes, when you look at that final sentence, if you look at it like in
Independent of the
isolation,
rest of it, yeah.
that could easily be the interpretation. But to me, when I read that makes me think about our PSEO students who are taking college credit courses and that they are not required to achieve a specific score level of proficiency on an assessment, like their college requirements. anything that's above what they would have received for their high school requirements, those are two separate things. That's where the division of their post-secondary credits and their high school credits come in. And I think it's very important to make sure that when we're communicating about this particular portion, that it's in reference only to post-secondary versus in general. Because that last sentence is, you could take that and be like, oh, I don't have to graduate, I don't have to pass anything. No, that's not what that means.
Okay, well, once again, it's open for
I know.
interpretation, because when I read it, it's kind of a standalone sentence with all these other run-on sentences.
Yeah, I can see that.
So anyway, I wanted to bring that up.
Yep.
Because in the future, if it is a questionable thing, I just wanna make sure that we've
Language matters.
discussed it.
Language matters, yeah.
Language matters, punctuation matters.
So in the second sentence, it said students who participate in such programs, that might clear it up, is that what you're saying?
That might, because I don't specifically see that in the paragraph relating, it's under the heading of graduation requirements. And it says there that, yeah, those things don't matter for graduation. It will
I think
have-
I would be more inclined to think that if it was its own line. Like if it was line F on its own, if it wasn't part of E. I feel like you have to look at that entire segment together.
But in the beginning, it doesn't really, it doesn't say post-secondary, under item E. It's just state
It doesn't?
graduation requirements. It says,
Courses or programs for the college credit.
College
Right.
credit.
Well, cause it's gonna be concurrent too, it wouldn't necessarily have to be post-secondary.
exactly.
Right.
It says students in grade 11 or 12.
Right.
Right.
And those are the only students who are eligible for those kind of courses. Courses that would be
Okay,
above and beyond.
well, in the concurrent classes then that are taught at the high school, if this is into that, then with that,
Right?
so,
To me, like, not entirely the same. A student taking an AP course, when they take that AP test, that is not a deciding factor as to whether or not they pass the class. That's a, hey, you did really good on this test, and we're gonna give you some college credit for that. To me, that's kind of where I think this is going. I think, like you said, I think it's really important to be extremely clear about that when, if somebody brings that up and tries to argue otherwise.
okay. Item 620. Let's see.
It's only the official 618, or did I mark that?
No, 6 to 18 is there, I was gonna go back.
What are you looking at?
Were you done, 618?
Well, you know, we've digested a lot here. I'd have to, first of all, increase the size of the font.
Yes.
Her name is good eyes and Dan Wilson. And then, oh yeah, it was kind of like what you said, Kathy, about, maybe you said this earlier. It's, Roman numeral 4A, the school board superintendent director of instruction shall establish criteria for which student performance, local academics, and elective status are valued and improved. So, are we gonna be doing that? Is that done? Is there a, that's, Roman numeral 4A, establish the criteria. So school board, we're gonna ultimately approve this criteria. Has it been approved? Is it being worked on now? That's just a question I had here.
Do you have that 618?
Yep, you say what section, Doug?
Roman numeral 4A, the school board superintendent shall establish criteria.
Yeah, so that's not a change to what we currently have, so we any new courses that we would have, in our course registration guide, or what we've done, with our backup profile, approving the capstone project, would align to that.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had, Kathy.
Okay, thank you. Then under item 620, policy 620, credit for learning, number 3, item D. That currently is being challenged in a lawsuit, the portion in red. And so just knowing that that may be changing in the
Yeah.
future. So, okay.
You know, we had talked about some of this ambiguity. Any of this stuff probably could be challenged in a lawsuit.
Oh, absolutely. I have a friend who's a lawyer that told me that once.
Yeah.
You can sign whatever you want, it doesn't matter. You can still.
Everything is debatable.
Carol, do you want to be your question? And what item was that again?
Let's see, it's under 4A, and it says the school district must maintain a supply of opioid antagonists at each school site. So, every school, we're gonna have a minimum of 2 doses, including miflopristone.
Yep, that's what we're working on with our provider.
And then, I just had a, question kind of going along with the 2 doses, because it said, talks about the standing order in there. What's the shelf life? You know,
I don't know what what it is for Narcan.
just wondering how often, we're gonna be doing that standing order. And then my other question was. Can you hear me? Sorry for 36 months. Let me get down here. Okay, so under 5A, it's talking about the storage locations, and then also talking about outside of the school when activities are conducted off school grounds. And then there's a note there that says school districts may decide that naloxone will not be sent on field trips, transportation, or activities that occur outside of the typical school day or off school property, and may modify this statement accordingly. What is our thought on that?
Sorry, I'm trying to get to where you were.
Sorry, 5A. In that note section.
Yep, so approving this would be written as is. If we wanted to eliminate part of the policy where we did do field trips, then we would amend that here. So it would be really up to the board on how they want to approach and what they want to send on field trips or out of off-site areas.
Because it says we would need to provide a trained staff member, so would we have that available for the outside
We're-
activities?
Yeah, we're working with our nursing staff to provide the training for all of our employees.
Thank you.
So I asked you the other, one, was it Narcan? Narcan coordinator, that's one person. Is there trained staff members in each building? Or will there be?
Yes,
And if I'm the baseball coach and we go up to Humboldt in St. Paul, and we decide we wanna have someone would be put onto the bus to meet that need, is that we saw fit?
could be, or the visiting team has that with trainers and.
I mean, that's kind of an instantaneous thing, if someone, staff or student had an overdose, you probably wanna, be right on there, right, so you do have someone in each building, or, yeah.
has Narcan, and until they get there, you just do CPR, the chest compressions and breath, and I'm sure most law enforcement can get there within a few minutes, so I would personally say it's probably not necessary to take it on field trips, but that's just my own opinion.
Evan, do you have any understanding of, the expiration?
I think it'll last for several years, probably at least a year or two, and I don't think they're terribly expensive, they're really small, just like little, stick up your nose, it's like a little nasal thing. That's what I carry anyway, it's really easy to use,
Thank you.
pretty dummy proof.
Excellent. So do we have any further questions regarding any of the pulled policies? Do I have a motion to approve the pulled policies at this point? Vicki, is there a second? Carol seconded. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. At this point, we have a reminder that the school board study session is scheduled for Monday, July 24th from 2:30 to 5 in the district conference room. So that's coming up. A lot of work has been put into that. And at this point, I need a motion to enter. Oh,
I said, were we gonna have a retreat this summer? Is that?
that
Oh,
is,
yeah,
that's the workshop. That's what this is.
Oh, okay. And then you're asking us if we might be interested in joining some kind of training in August, is that correct?
Correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, in the board update this, last Friday, we have a training on August 15th. One is, it's a full day training, one is with Fran Sepler, and she's gonna provide, information, background on workplace, psychological and physical safety. And then in the afternoon, one of our attorneys from, our law firm Ratlick will be here to talk around First Amendment, questions or concerns, and also around student discipline and substantial changes in the legislation and what that means for schools.
So we should let you know if we're gonna make that.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
At this time, I'd entertain a motion to go into a closed session for a negotiation update.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? A second from Evan, discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are now in closed session. Good night, everybody, for now, unless you want to